Hi guys, I'm Nina.
I'm Ethan.
And unfortunately, Jamie can't be with us tonight, but don't worry, she will be back soon. We miss you,
love
Jamie.
You, Jamie.
Yes, we love you. We miss you. Can't wait for you to be back.
Definitely.
All right. Just a quick thank you to everybody who's already supported the podcast. It really means a lot to us, and it allows us to continue to do what we do. And also shout out to Patreon Rick Paulton. Rick, thank you for everything that you do for us. Whether it's just sending us, your thoughts on the episodes or, just checking on us to see how we're doing. Thank you for, everything.
Yes, we appreciate it. And we appreciate your friendship more.
Absolutely.
So,
if you want to be mentioned in our episodes as well and receive fun little goodies from the entire Bloody Essentials team, you can join our Patreon. It's no commitment. All the funds go back into the podcast 100%. And you get fun perks from the entire Bloody Essentials team, such as, a Discord channel. We are setting up monthly movie parties, I think, in February. And unedited episodes on Patreon. Yes.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, especially the last episode we just did, which was the Good for Her episode. You definitely want to see that unedited episode, yeah. I assure you. Yeah. No upcoming appearances yet, but it's still early in January right now. So keep an eye out. We'll definitely be having some soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Tonight we have a special guest, our first returning guest to the podcast.
Yay.
Yeah. Brandy, Terrific Lady.
Hello.
Hey, Brandy.
It is so great to be back. I've literally been waiting all year for this.
I know.
It came out last year. It's like, yes. So, yes, I've literally been waiting all year.
I've been setting this one aside just for you. I had my notes on, no one touched this movie. No one's allowed to pick it.
I brought it up. I'm like, let's do that movie. She's like, we can't do it. And I was like, why? She's like, because Brandy's coming back. And I was like, oh, okay. Good. I just want to do the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good reason to wait.
Right? I'm like, yes. We'll wait.
Absolutely. Before we get into Candyman, which is what we'll be covering tonight, Brandy, will you tell our listeners more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am Brandy, the Terrific Lady, and I run Retro Horror School on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads. Talk a lot about horror from the 1970s through the 2010s, teach a lot about horror, and just like to have at least somewhat positive discussions in a very just positive and respectful environment. So that's what I try to do. I think it's going good.
I think it is too. I love your channel. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get into Candyman, obviously since the last time we've talked to you, unfortunately Tony Todd has passed away. So we wanted to ask, talk a little bit about Tony and a little bit about his legacy. So Brandy, what is your, obviously Candyman, but what's your favorite Tony Todd role outside of that?
Well, my favorite Tony Todd role outside of Candyman would have to be him in The Crow. I know he had a brief little part in it, but I thought he fit very well in the overall universe of The Crow, the very dark, kind of gritty universe, which Candyman is also kind of a gritty movie as well. So yeah, he seems to like to do a lot of gritty stuff. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, he fits very well into that. Yeah. Mine is Night of the Living Dead, the remake with Tom Savini directing. I think that it's very hard to step into the shoes of Dwayne Jones, but Tony Todd did it and made it look effortless. So
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know he's a horror icon, but the movie that I'm going to pick is actually not horror. He was in Platoon, and that, number one, is a phenomenal movie, but he did such a good job in that.
Yeah.
That's actually, I was watching it maybe a year and a half ago or so, and Josh came through and he looks and he goes, wait a minute. And I was like, what am I waiting for? He goes, isn't he the Candyman? And I was like, yes, he's the Candyman. So.
Love it. The Candyman can. All right. Let's get into talking about Candyman, shall we?
Let's.
All right. So we open with some of the most beautiful opening credits ever in a horror movie, right? Which isn't very often said about the streets of Chicago.
That is a fact.
But we've got this great cinematography of the cameras pointed down at the streets as we see, just the traffic of Chicago, basically. And we've got, we have this shot of the bees that are swarming around, and we've got this great line that Tony says, they will say I spilled innocent blood, but what's blood for if not for shedding? That really just sets the tone for this movie, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, definitely does. Definitely does. Also, based on is it a short story, a novella, something by Clive Barker called The Forbidden? So you definitely see that tone throughout the movie, a very Clive Barker-ish tone.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah. The music even feels very Clive Barker-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at other Clive Barker adaptations, for sure.
I'm going to go ahead and X that off of my fun facts, Brandy. Thank you. She's doing my job for me.
Oh, the movie is based off the short story?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, we get the story of Candyman, and we've got a great little cameo, I guess you'd call it, of Ted Raimi in this story of the boyfriend. And, if you basically say Candyman's name in a mirror 5 times, he'll come and he'll kill you. And we meet Helen, and her friend Bernadette. They are basically interviewing people on the mythos of Candyman and how that has evolved over the years. And he kind of represents people are using Candyman to basically, I guess, as a scapegoat almost for real world issues, basically, right?
Sure.
You're like, sure, I don't know what that means.
Yes, about attributing the daily horrors of their lives to a mythical figure.
Yeah. So that's what they're writing their thesis on. They're graduate students, which I don't know, maybe it's just the time frame or the fashions, but they look so much older than they should be for graduate students.
Agreed.
Okay. Glad I'm not the only one. Okay. And then we are introduced to Helen's husband, Trevor, who is a professor at the college, and he's teaching a class on urban legends and modern folklore. And definitely get the vibe that he's a little skeezy.
Yeah.
Just right off the bat. Yeah, not a fan.
No.
Yeah. He's definitely dating a student. Yeah. Yeah. And then, Helen's working late because she's a college student, and you definitely have to as a graduate student. But she meets some cleaning ladies who actually know all about Candyman. And this is where we find out the legend of Candyman is very much associated with Cabrini Green. A woman recently was killed there called Ruthie Jean. And apparently Candyman is responsible for her death. So we get Helen. She's reviewing news articles, and she discovers that her apartment building was actually originally built as a housing project. However, the city realized that there was no barrier between the wealthier neighborhoods of like Gold Coast and the downtown area. So they ended up selling the building as condos, and that's how Helen came to live there. So, yeah.
Something about also that bathroom, it really kind of weirded me out, the fact that there was just like a mirror and a medicine chest that's separating one bathroom from another. Like, I don't know if she bought that condo outright or like her and her husband like bought it together, but yeah, I would immediately be plastering up that hole in the wall.
Oh yeah, immediately. Yeah, I would be talking to the condo board or something. Yeah. So Helen theorizes that the killer was able to get into Ruthie Jean's apartment through the medicine cabinet hole, basically. And we have this great moment where Helen and Bernadette are, they're standing in the bathroom together and they're saying Candyman in the mirror, and they say it 4 times, but Helen says it just 1 more time, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the next day. Helen and Bernadette they're talking about driving to Cabrini Green. They're obviously very scared. This is a very, very dangerous neighborhood at the time.
And they're also very stupid, but go ahead.
Yes, they are.
Being from Chicago, and I've actually been to Cabrini Green, very stupid.
Well, Bernadette's prepared. Helen is not.
Yeah.
Helen's just like cops. It's going to be fine. Like, man, you're a white woman. You are a white woman.
Yeah.
No, it's not fine.
Bernadette is packing. She's prepared.
Go Bernadette.
Yeah, she knows she's in a horror movie. Oh my God. Ethan, do you want to tell, abbreviated version, I guess, of the story when you went to Cabrini Green? Because it's no longer standing.
Yes. Way back in the day, for those of you who don't know what Cabrini Green is, it is or was a housing project. Very, very, very low income, riddled with drugs, gangs. I mean, it was horrible. And how do I want to put that? If you were white, you didn't go there unless you were a cop or a preacher. I mean, you didn't do it, and you didn't go after dark. There was just no, there was no reason. You just didn't do it because most of the time you'd get killed. Anyway, I, through my church, got some names of some underprivileged kids for Christmas, and they happened to be in the Cabrini Green area. So I was like, okay, cool. I was stupid. I don't know, 18, 19 years old, but I was like, I'm going to go deliver these. So I go, and I'm like, and so cops all over. And they're like, well, what are you doing here? So they called into the police station, and I was like, well, I have to go deliver these. And they're like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes, I am. They're like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, there's no choices here. These kids don't have Christmas, so I'm going to. So they were like, well, if you're going to, we're going to go with you. So I had an armed escort there. I had a squad car in front of me, my car, 2 squad cars behind me. 1 squad car stayed there and watched our cars. 4 cops got out and
escorted
me into the building, and literally had to a sea of people doing drugs and gangs, and they were like, all right, move. You know, he's just here delivering, some presents. I went, delivered their presents, did what I was supposed to do. They were very, very grateful. I'm very happy I did it. But they then instituted where we could, the following year, where we wouldn't go do them, but we would drop them off and the police would go.
And take them
to them. So, but
what year was that you visited?
Oh gosh. I want to say sometime in the 80s or 90s.
Okay.
So I don't really remember. I could look it up, but I know I was very, very, very young.
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, it had to be in the 90s. I would like right before it was torn down.
Yeah. So the most unrealistic part of this movie, basically, is what you're saying, is that the hallways were clear of people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That would not have happened.
That always felt strange to me too,
yeah.
But that's interesting. All right. So Helen and Bernadette, they get to the Cabrini Green buildings, and, first thing we see is a gang downstairs, and they're just heckling them, obviously. But they go into the building, and they're very smart. They're not waiting for the elevator. They just go on up the stairs. We see graffiti covering every inch of that building. And we get our first exposure to, Sweets to the Sweet. And then Helen and Bernadette actually find Ruthie Jean's apartment. I'm impressed that they even know what number it is, because I wouldn't have thought that would be in the papers, but hey, she did her research.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the layout, Helen says, is identical to her apartment. And first thing they do, they go into the bathroom and they push the mirror out, and there's just a hole in the wall. And Helen is once again very stupid and goes in through the hole.
Yeah. And I was like, I would feel weird about going into an apartment where someone was murdered. Like, I wouldn't want to do it. No, that's
yeah, for sure. And I'm amazed that it's as clean as what it is, honestly.
Yeah.
And it would not have been.
No, it would not have been cleaned They would have been lucky if the body was even still out, like still, yeah. But yeah. So Helen's dumb.
Drunk sis is Helen's dumb.
Yep. 30 minutes into the movie, and she's stupid about 12 times. So,
Yep. Her privilege is showing.
No, her stupidity is showing.
Well, that too. But so Helen is exploring this, what used to be an apartment, but is now just, I guess, like Candyman's lair, basically.
Right.
And one of the most beautiful and iconic moments from the entire movie is, when she goes through the hole and the hole opens up and you see the mouth of Candyman and then his face. So you get the whole image of Candyman on that wall, and then it opens up into this massive room. It's basically like a cave. That's what it looks like to me, like just this cave. And then she sees candy on the ground, and I thought that was really cool with the razor blades in it. It's like another little urban legend thing.
Yep.
And then we see Anne-Marie. She confronts Bernadette and Helen about even being in there. And Anne-Marie lives at the project. She's a single mom. Her son, Anthony, is just a little baby. And she tells them about Ruthie Jean. She heard her screaming and she called out, but no one came. And, Anne-Marie confesses she's scared. She's scared for her baby. And she, she says he won't get him. And Helen's like, who are you talking about? And she's like, Candyman. It's like she's more scared of Candyman than she is about the gangs downstairs and all that. So, yeah. So we cut to the dinner scene with, Bernadette and Helen, and then Trevor's there with another sleazy colleague. Like, he knows how to pick his friends. And, we learned that his friend did a thesis on Candyman as well, and we get a little bit more backstory on the Candyman mythos. Candyman was a son of a slave in 1890. His father had received a fortune for developing a machine to help make shoes or something like that, help make them better. And then Candyman was sent to all the best schools and everything. He grew up in polite society. He had a talent as a painter, and he ended up being commissioned to paint this man's daughter. And then, of course, they fell in love. So that's not allowed. And then, of course, she's got to be pregnant. Makes it even more tragic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the father found out. He hired some people to chase him to what is now Cabrini Green at the time. And then this mob, they sawed off his right hand and replaced it with they sawed his hand off with a rusty blade. And then there were nearby, like, hiveries or whatever they call it? The bee nests things where they
call it bee houses.
Yeah, bee houses.
Bee houses.
And so the mob stole the hives. They pulled out the honeycomb and basically like put the bees on his naked body and just smothered him in it. And then the bees just stung him. And that wasn't enough. They had to burn his body, and then they scattered his ashes all over Cabrini Green. It's like the worst thing you could possibly do to a human being. And then they just,
yeah, did and all for falling in love with somebody, and it's just, wow, that's horrible. It's like, no wonder he becomes kind of like Candyman becomes kind of a vengeful type spirit.
Yeah,
happened to him. So
absolutely. Hey, I'm not saying murder is ever right, but racism isn't either.
No.
Not saying murder is right, but we're not saying it's wrong either. So
it's right in the movies, and that's
exactly.
Yes, movies and books. That's all, and video games. I'll allow that. So Helen, of course, she's stupid. We've established this. She continues to go back to Cabrini Green because if this time alone, so even more dumb.
Oh my gosh.
And if she wasn't packing the first time, she's definitely not packing this time. Yeah. And, she meets Jake, a little boy that lives at the projects. She asks him to show her where Candyman is because he's apparently seen him. Jake takes some convincing because obviously everybody here is scared of Candyman, but he finally he does. He agrees.
Not only that, but he's probably thinking, who the hell is this white woman?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, why is she here? I mean,
I'm sure everybody at these projects are very suspicious, understandably so, of white people in general.
Sure.
So, yeah. But he tells her the story he heard from his friend Charlie, which I love. They're continuing this where, everybody doesn't have firsthand knowledge. They just heard this from a friend of a friend of a friend,
right?
Which just fits with that urban legend. But he tells him about this boy who was basically like handicapped he was mentally ill or whatever, and he was murdered in this bathroom. And, she goes into the bathroom. We see the suites to the suite again. We've got the arrow that points down to the toilet, which I love. And we see into the toilet and it just bees. So love that. Unfortunately, the gang from earlier finds out that she's back and they beat the shit out of her because she's dumb.
And she should be lucky that that's all that happened to her.
Yeah. Good thing that little boy was there just waiting outside the bathroom, so he was able to call the cops and let them know what happened.
That's probably one of the more unrealistic moments of this too.
Yeah.
I don't think the little boy would have called.
No, but in this movie he did. That's a good thing.
Yeah. He's a good kid, yeah, for sure. But I don't think he'll be calling again.
Nope.
So we fast forward where we see a police lineup and Helen is identifying her attacker. And this guy claimed to be Candyman. He had his hook and everything. So all the white people are assuming that they have their killer for Ruthie Jean, right? And so the police reveal that they've locked down Cabrini Green. No one's going in or out at all. And Jake's mad at Helen because, he says that this was their secret. You weren't supposed to tell anybody. And now Candyman's going to come and get him. Helen meets up with Bernadette. She gets the film from the camera that they were taking pictures of Cabrini Green earlier. And she's walking to her car. And we finally meet Candyman, Tony Todd. And we get some great dialogue from him. One of my favorite moments that he says during the scene is, you were not content with the story, so I had to come. Be my victim. And then he proceeds with, I am the writing on the wall. I am the whisper in the classroom. And if you don't get chills during the scene, there's something wrong with you.
God, that dialogue was delivered almost very Shakespearean too, in a way. That's the vibe that I got from that. I was just like, oh, yeah. It still gives me chills. I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times. I lost count.
Yeah. When Tony makes his entrance, you stop and you watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, he's confronting Helen for her disbelief in him. And, he's like, everybody's been telling you about me and you continue to not believe in me. And basically she's going to pay for that. And she does. So she kind of blacks out. He definitely has an effect on her. And she blacks out and she wakes up. And she is back at Cabrini Green, y'all. And she's covered in blood.
Uh-huh.
She's in Anne Marie's apartment. And Anne Marie's dog is beheaded. And you see Anne Marie is just screaming. She just got home and she can't find her son, which is probably the most horrific thing that a parent could ever experience, right? Blood in your home and you can't find your kid.
Right.
And the cops, they come in right as Helen is standing over Anne Marie with a meat cleaver. So naturally they arrest Helen. And Helen has to go through one of the most humiliating things anybody could go through, which is, a strip search. She's still covered in blood. And then once that's over, the detectives are confronting her in the interrogation room. And, they're trying to understand what's going on. They don't get it.
Right.
She asks to make a phone call and she tries to call Trevor. And of course there's no answer because Trevor is out with his girlfriend. She hasn't caught on to that yet.
No.
Well, we've already determined she's not real bright.
I know.
So
She suspects. She definitely suspects, and I always got the vibe that he's had some entanglements in the past, or like
yeah,
he's been caught in some compromising situations, but he's never like been outright caught. And she's way too trusting of him because she's a student herself. I mean, she was a student in his class. He has a thing for students.
Yeah.
So it's disgusting. It's so gross. Yeah. Yeah.
tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I will tell you how I really feel.
Please. You're so quiet, Brandy. Come on.
Well, it's just like I was a graduate student, and with it, I had to do graduate teaching assistantry myself. And we had to go through orientations like before the beginning of the year. And one of the things that they made specifically sure to point out to us is that we were not going to be like getting involved with students like in that way, and we shouldn't. And I'm like, well, good. I had no plans to, so I had absolutely no plans to do anything like that. But yeah, just the fact that they make it a point to specifically point that out is just,
Which is ridiculous that you even have to point that out.
Yeah.
Please don't sleep with your students. Well, no shit. I mean,
You would think you wouldn't have to point that out, but
Yeah, right.
unfortunately, people really get off on that power dynamic, and it's disgusting.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Helen, she sees the image of Anthony. Gets a flash of an image of Anthony being kept by Candyman in his lair. And then, Trevor comes in the next day to collect Helen, basically. Helen is looking through the film footage that they had of when they went through Cabrini Green, and she finds an image with Candyman actually standing behind her. And she goes to the mirror in the bathroom, and we see Candyman's hook emerge through the medicine cabinet at her, and Candyman has arrived.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to kill you now, Helen. Like, you have pushed me too far,
Right.
woman.
just so you know, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
Yep. By the way,
Yeah.
I am going to kill you.
Yep.
But it's going to be beautiful.
Okay.
he makes death sound great. I will say, like, he's very convincing.
Yeah, you believe for a few seconds, like, wait, what? No.
It's like, no, it's okay. But yeah, such an iconic line. He says, your death will be a tale to frighten children. I love that line so much.
To make lovers cling closer in their rapture.
Seriously, it sounds like some Shakespearean writing. Like, it's so beautiful. But unfortunately, right as Candyman's about to kill Helen, Bernadette shows up. This poor woman. Guilty by association. And Helen is like screaming. She's like, please don't come in. Don't go away. But Bernadette's stupid. She forgot she's in a horror movie.
Right?
Bernadette, no! You were so prepared like earlier. What happened?
She thinks she's safe. That's the problem. She thinks
Right.
she's safe with her friend. Yeah. And then Candyman ends up killing Bernie, and it unfortunately doesn't look good for Helen.
No.
Because this is the second
Yep.
scene where there's blood all over the place, and she's holding the weapon. And Trevor walks in and discovers Bernadette's body, and he sees Helen just absolutely hysterical, understandably, because she just lost her best friend, right? But Helen is arrested again. This time she's taken to a psych ward and just strapped to the bed. And she's still covered in blood. Like, come on, at least let her take a shower, guys. Helen is taken to Dr. Burke, who's a schmuck, horrible doctor. He explains that she's been locked away for a month now already. And she's being charged with first-degree murder.
Understandably so.
Yeah. It doesn't look good for Helen.
No. Yeah.
No.
Literally.
Does not look good for you, dear.
No, and if a month went by, how much drugs are they keeping her on? They're keeping her
Right.
pretty doped up during that time for like her to be there for a month and her not even realize it.
Yeah, she's basically just sleeping the whole time, like induced coma. Let's see. Helen, says Candyman's name, and he appears like, her personal little savior and kills Dr. Burke. Literally, like her personal little savior, and he.
I mean, it's always good to have a serial killer in your
Little
back pocket.
guardian angel, yeah.
I'll be like, take care of this.
And he loosens her straps for her, and she escapes the hospital very cleverly. She switches into the nurse's outfit and everything. And it's amazing that nobody knows what any of the patients look like. So, especially one as high profile as this one that's been there for a month.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone in the hospital's dumb.
No, it's Chicago.
At least there were people in this hospital, unlike every other horror movie, when she could have just walked out because nobody's there. So,
that's true. You're right.
At least there was somebody in this one.
That's true. So Helen escapes the hospital, and I love how the first place she goes is home. Like, I get it, but like Trevor wasn't there for you when you were most vulnerable. He literally left you there.
See, she should have went home and called Candyman. And been like,
she should have been like, yo, Candyman.
Handle him.
Yeah, this guy.
Right?
No, I like how she deals with Trevor later. I like how she deals with Trevor in this scene too, honestly. So, Helen gets home, and the home is very different. So home is being remodeled.
Right.
We've got new furniture. We've got this Pepto-Bismol pink on the wall. And Trevor's girlfriend, Stacy, has moved in. And, they obviously are shocked to see that she's there. And she just full on confronts them. Like, what, were you going to just like act like nothing happened when I got out? Like, you knew I was never getting out. And then, they're like, we should call the hospital or something to let them know that you're out. It's like, they know. They know.
How do they know? Well, because they found the dead doctor. They know.
Yeah.
They definitely know.
Yeah, they know. They're looking for me, but they know.
They know.
Yeah.
And and then she holds out the phone to them, which I loved was also Pepto-Bismol pink. And she's like, call them. And like the look in her eye is like so vengeful and gorgeous. I loved it. Yeah. Definitely good for her moment.
Yeah, that definitely was. I was waiting for her to also throw the phone at them. Yeah. That would have been nice.
Yeah. I was waiting for her to go like full on crazy, like Snapped. This will be an episode of Snapped.
Which is understandable.
Totally understandable. Yeah. Like, I don't know how long they've been married, but they're married. And the fact that anybody would do this to their wife, like, it makes you think of like the old, like Victorian stories of, their people locking their wives away and like moving their mistresses in or whatever. So Helen has nowhere left to turn but to Cabrini Green, basically. And so she goes back to the projects and she sees Candyman, and we have this iconic moment where, he's got the bees in his mouth, which he actually did, by the way. We've got that great scene where he's got the bees in his mouth, and, he starts to kiss her, and then he carries her into his lair, which great combo of creepy, scary, and also oddly romantic and charming. And she wakes up in his lair and she finds a hook on the ground. And, she hears his voice in her head, and he's just like, it was always you, Helen. It's written on the wall. And we see a portrait of a woman we presume was the woman he initially fell in love with as, the human version of himself. And it looks surprisingly very much like Helen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So I'm kind of wondering if it's some kind of reincarnation thing where Helen is his, like, reincarnated love or something like that.
That's always the vibe I got.
And I had never thought about that, but the next time I watch that, I'm going to keep that in my craw. I like that. Thank you.
That's always the vibe I got because she's so affected by him.
Yeah.
And I think like he spends so much time with her compared to his other victims, and he's so lenient, I guess you'd say, with her.
Yeah, because the first time she said Candyman 5 times, with all the others, like all their other urban legends, he come through and kill the people immediately. With her, he didn't. Oh.
With her, he did not. He was like, come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you come to me. Yeah.
I'm gonna kill you, but you come to me.
All right. So Helen is outside. We see the pyre from earlier that, the residents of Cabrini Green have been building up. And she's climbing the pyre. Let's see. We hear baby Anthony crying, and the residents are slowly coming out of their buildings, and they're about to set this pyre on fire. And Helen just desperately searching for this baby. She sees him, and she's trying to get to him in time before it's too late. Candyman appears, and we've got this great battle between the two of them. And Helen just trying. She's not even worried about herself anymore. She's just trying to save Anthony, right? She's trying to fix what has happened. And Helen stabs him with a piece of wood that she finds on the ground, and she's shielding Anthony with her body. And Helen is on fire, and she's like just crawling out of this pyre, and the residents are attempting to actually put her out. And Helen is, no hair, nothing, just awful looking. And Helen hands Anthony back to Anne Marie, just as the pyre collapses on Candyman, and Helen is presumed dead at this point.
What a way to go. Ugh.
Yeah, that's rough. It's really rough. Like, all of her hair is gone. It's a very brutal image.
Definitely.
And it's also very hard to make her look awful because she is such a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And then we see, there's the funeral that's there for Helen. Trevor has the balls to bring his whore of a girlfriend. That's what I have in my notes. I'm just reading my notes. And his sleazy colleagues, no one is even there at the funeral. Like, she doesn't have any other friends. Are you serious? No one?
No, because Bernadette's dead, so.
Yeah. Or maybe if she had other friends, they're just not showing up because maybe they think that she's a killer.
That's true. And Trevor is just showing up because they were still married or something. But he brings his stupid girlfriend. Are you serious?
And I'm sorry. That doesn't matter to me. Even if I found out, God forbid something happened, even if I found out you were a killer, it doesn't alter the fact that I loved you.
Aw.
I would still go.
Good.
I would still go to the funeral. I mean,
You better.
So.
Yeah. So, no one's there. It's just Trevor basically and his friends. And all of a sudden we see the residents of Cabrini Green coming in a line. And of course, the first people on the line are Anne Marie and Anthony and Jake, the people she got closest to. And I love that they throw the hook on her casket.
Yeah.
It's like the legend of Candyman will continue with you, basically.
We'll see you in part 2. Click.
We're not talking about part 2.
Yeah. Leave part 2 out of it.
That's a separate entity.
Oh, it is. Part 2, 3, and the remake are all separate entities. So.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Trevor at his apartment with his whore girlfriend. But he's in the bathroom and he's clearly feeling, guilty, sad, some kind of way over, Helen and everything. And he keeps seeing these images in his mind of Helen greeting him after work, basically just being the perfect wife, and he's not appreciating her kind of thing.
Right.
His girlfriend is pissy because he's not paying attention to her, and she just wants to play house, basically, and he's done playing house with her. And Trevor is just grief-stricken, and he says Helen's name in the bathroom mirror 5 times. And instead of Candyman, we have Helen that appears in the mirror, and she looks exactly as how she died. No hair, just very pale and very scary looking. And she kills Trevor with the hook, and his whore of a girlfriend finds him dead and gutted.
she's gonna get blamed for it.
That's right.
Good. And I love how just before the credits roll, we've got this great image in Candyman's former lair. But instead of Candyman's face there, it is now Helen. And she looks like almost this like Joan of Arc like portrait, like this angel almost. And she, like, in my mind, she's just basically, instead of like a boogeyman, she is now the protector of the residents of Cabrini Green.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I've always seen her more as a protector than as a boogeyman. And I have to wonder if there's wives whose husbands are cheating on them, they can invoke the name of Helen, and she'll come and like kill their cheating husbands.
That's the sequel we need.
Yes.
Virginia Madsen, I'm looking at you, lady.
I'm sorry. I think we should have the sequel be cheating spouses, because women can be whores too, not just guys.
That's right. That's why I said whore girlfriend.
Yep. Oh no, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheating
But that
spouses.
would be a great sequel.
Just people being wronged in general. Falsely accused. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. So that is Candyman. Ethan, would you like to hit us with some fun facts before we get into rating the movie?
I certainly will. The character, as Brandy said, the character of Candyman was created by Clive Barker in 1985 from the short story The Forbidden. In the book, the character's backstory was left unknown, and Tony Todd is the one who actually came up with the backstory for Candyman in the movie.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Have either of you read the book, by the way, the story?
I have not.
No, I haven't. I really want to, though. I've gotten into Clive Barker a lot lately. The Hellbound Heart, though, is excellent.
Yes.
Oh, it is. It's so great. Yeah, I want to read more of his stuff this year. That's one of my goals.
Okay, as we know, the bees were real in the movie, and Tony Todd was stung 27 times by bees.
Ouchies.
But he was paid an additional $1,000 per sting, plus obviously what he made for the movie. So he made an extra $27,000 for allowing the bees to be on him.
Dedication to the role, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, when they were doing the casting, the original person that they wanted for Candyman, which I cannot see, was Eddie Murphy.
What?
Oh.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Candyman would be like, you don't get no ice cream because you're on the welfare. No, I'm like, no. I cannot deal. But he was too short.
He was too short.
He was
Thank
too short.
goodness.
He was too short to be Candyman, so they went with Tony Todd because of his height.
He is very tall. Was
Yes.
very tall.
Yes, he was very tall. The exterior, the filming location was Cabrini Green, the housing projects, as we know. The people who were on the outside
Mm-hmm.
were actually gang members from Cabrini Green.
Wow.
The people who filmed it said, we want to use Cabrini Green, and they were like, no, we're not letting you. And they said, we'll let you guys be in the movie. And they were extras in the movie, the people outside, but they were all gang members. And the only thing that they had to do was say, okay, we're your protection. Nothing's going to happen to you while you're filming here because this gang runs this section of Cabrini and we've got your back. So
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
they
That
were
would,
able to be in the movie so they could get protection.
wow.
Yep.
That's
And originally, I did not know, but before they were going to do it in Cabrini Green in Chicago,
yeah.
I don't know if it's this way in the book.
Mhm.
It's set in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, like
It's
I
set
know
in
there's
London.
gangs in London, but like I can't picture it because yeah.
No, I just can't.
It doesn't have the same grittiness, but
No.
it makes sense because Clive is British.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the fun facts that I have for the movie.
Love that. Brandy, do you have any others? I know you're more well versed in fun facts than we are.
Oh, I already shared like the one about how it's based on a Clive Barker story, which I didn't know for a very long time. So that was
Mhm.
surprising. Everybody knows the bees one. I can't think of any off the top of my of my head, actually. But yeah, the gang one I did know. So
Okay.
and I think what was it? I think related to that, I remember reading that on the last day of shooting, there was like actual shots, I think, being fired from the Cabrini Green building, and one of them hit their film truck, film van, and they're just like, go, 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 go. So they're just like having to like rush out of there. So there was like, they had to deal with like shootouts. So
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
That would be very scary for everybody, I think. Yeah.
Because each one of the buildings in Cabrini Green like had different gangs.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
And they were all the same height, right? Or roughly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
They all had different people who ran different things. So
yeah, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. Honestly, But now it's a great gentrified neighborhood.
Well,
Ish.
yeah, kind of. So
yeah, what's left of Cabrini Green is basically gone now. So
yeah, it was still back in the day. It was even after it went when they closed it, it was still a pretty bad neighborhood.
Yeah,
just because they closed it, but people kind of still hung out there and did whatever.
Yeah. I'm sure it took a while for them to fully move out to where they ended up.
Oh,
so
yeah. So there's a recording studio because the other side of it is gentrified. Like directly across the street is a bunch of like yuppies, and there's a recording studio across the street from it that I used recording, and they were like, "All right, we're just gonna pull up, walk right in." They're like, "Don't go out for a cigarette. Don't go out to a phone call. We'll record and then come back in and leave." So,
wow,
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, the history of Chicago is very fascinating, but this is one that gets people interested in the lore of the city, so it's fun. All right, let's get into rating this movie. Brandy, since you are our guest, we will start with you. 1 out of 10, ma'am.
Oh boy. Well, I saw this movie for the first time about 5 years ago. So I came into it, I guess, pretty late in the game. But from the minute I saw it, I loved everything about it. I loved the story. I loved Tony Todd's performance. That was, of course, a huge standout. I love Virginia Madsen. Yeah. Besides her dumb moments, I didn't like those. No, but she did really good in the role and the environment it was set in. I'm very glad that Bernard Rose moved it from the London setting to the setting of Chicago. Lent very well for this story because the setting was almost a character in and of itself. The grittiness, the just the overall, just kind of at times abhorrency of it. But I would probably say for Candyman, my rating would be a 9 out of 10. Because sometimes Helen annoyed me sometimes with the way that she acted and some decisions that she made. But yeah, so 9 out of 10. I felt it was just a very solid story with solid performances and a really good setting.
Love it. I also think this was a 9 out of 10. I love this movie. I was kind of late to the game on this one too, Brandy, so don't worry.
Okay, good.
It's just not streaming a lot of places, and even for this one, we struggled to find it. But yeah, it's a very solid story. I love the acting. Like you said, the city is a character within itself, and anytime there's a little bit of social commentary in my horror, I'm a big fan of that. So the discussion between, the wealthy neighborhoods and the poor and having that barrier between them. Like, I think that's very interesting and unfortunately still happens quite a bit today. So, it's a very relatable topic, I think, for people. And Tony Todd, Virginia Madsen, they just go so well together. So I wish the sequels were as good.
Yeah.
Well, I seen this when it first came out because, well, I'm a lot older than both of you. So
in theaters?
I actually do believe I've seen it in theaters.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it in theaters.
I do believe I've seen it at first in the theaters and then on VHS. And it was phenomenal. Tony Todd, I've always liked him, always liked his acting. Virginia Madsen, she was great. The fact that I was from Chicago was like, oh my God, I love this. Yeah, I know where that is. I know where that is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I was like immersed in the movie. I absolutely think, and I love Tony Todd. So, I absolutely think if you have not seen this, you definitely need to see it. That's a 100%. If you just started in, your horror journey, you need to watch this. It's a phenomenal movie.
Definitely.
If you're from Chicago, you definitely need to see it. I mean, that's, but I would also give this a 9. So.
Wow. Yeah. I agree. I will say, I forgot to mention it earlier, but one of my favorite locations in the movie, it's not actually anything with Cabrini Green. It's the university, the outside where it's a circular stadium or whatever. I love that set so much and I wanted to visit it, but I heard it's gone.
Oh no.
I heard they destroyed it. Yeah, they tore it up already.
Oh, I have one more fun fact that I'm just going to throw out.
Yeah.
The line, "Be my victim," that was not written. Tony Todd made that up on the spot. Yep.
He improvised it. Oh my gosh.
Yes, he improvised "Be my victim." So.
And that's literally like, wait.
Yep.
Isn't that the tagline?
Yeah.
On the poster? Yeah, "Be my victim."
Yep.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
apparently when they were doing it, that wasn't written, and he said "Be my victim," and they were like, that's it right there.
Yeah. He was so in tune with that character.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love it when directors give their actors the freedom to do things like improvise, because if the director was a tightwad, then we wouldn't have had that iconic line. Right. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that a lot of directors don't do that anymore. But yeah, that's Candyman from 1992. Definitely check it out if you haven't. If you don't like Candyman, please tell us why, because we're very curious what your thought process is there.
If you don't like the 1992 Candyman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The OG.
We understand if you don't like the others. But that's for a different episode.
Yes. Because I have thoughts on the remake.
we won't get into
we're not going to talk about that, but I have thoughts on that.
No, come ask Ethan about it in person.
Yes, please. Next time you see me at a con, let's sit down and have a drink. We'll talk about it.
But because, we haven't actually done a Tony Todd movie before, we wanted, and since this is the first one since his passing, we just wanted to dedicate this episode to Tony Todd and his family, his fans. His legacy will live on because of this movie and many others that he was a part of. Small roles, big roles, it didn't matter. He left behind a legacy, and he will always be remembered.
Yes.
And with all that being said, thank you again, Brandy, for coming back. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you for not being scared off by me the first time.
Definitely not. No. We're looking forward to having you back, and we can't wait to talk horror with you again.
Thank you.
And just remember, guys, if you ever find yourself in a horror movie, don't have sex, don't do drugs,
and certainly don't die. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tony Todd, a.k.a. Candyman, My Living Dead, Final Destination. I was raised an only child. Didn't know we were poor until we were well past 13. The poverty of my upbringing, although it was kept from me, is a major part of whatever pools of sadness I can pull up. I was taught how to dig into a role, dig into a script, find out what the super objectives are, what the character's point of view is. I think films that bring up racial disparities are a good thing for discussions. I know that there have been several or many college dissertations written on Candyman and his impact to society. If you just took the horror out of it and just looked at it as an isolationist, you don't know who Candyman is, you don't know why he's there. He seems utterly focused on one specific goal, which is to reclaim his lost love. Putting on the coat definitely, brought me one step closer to finding the skin of the role, the skin of Granville. I love Candyman. I'm pretty sure that at this point, Candyman will be in the first 3 lines of my obituary, and I have no problem with that.